Tis the Season Folio that I created for Country Craft Creations using BoBunny's Yuletide Carol paper collection. The project walkthrough is on my YouTube channel. You can go over there and check out that video. So let's just jump in and get started. It seems kind of difficult, but it's really not. So we're going to start off with putting together, or actually let me start off with some of the tools that you're going to need. Obviously some scissors. Oh, and isn't that adorable? That little scissor charm? Teresa Howe Elliott, she's in the Scrapbookers group. She gave me that when we were at the retreat in Ohio. Isn't that just fantastic? It's so cute. Okay, and obviously a craft knife. This is my favorite stylus. Actually, this is one of those McGill flower making styluses. I don't know, but I use it in my scoreboard because I can't stand that little plastic one that comes with it. It hurts my fingers. So this, a bone folder. This is one of my favorites. I got this from bonefolder.com. It's one of those Teflon ones. I think it's actually called a lifter because if you look at the side of it, it's kind of, see how that, I don't know, they use it in bookmaking. And obviously a ruler. And then for this project, I have glue all over me. I used the envelope punch board. You don't have to have an envelope punch board. I used the envelopes for my waterfall. Actually, I have two waterfalls. If you saw the video, you see here I just made little envelopes and I turned them into the waterfall. So I did some horizontal and some vertical. The vertical ones are here on the right. You don't have to have the envelope punch board. You can just do a normal waterfall, but I just wanted to change it up just a little bit. So let's start with the cover. And this is, I will admit, is my least favorite part of all of this. It's not that it's difficult to do, it can be very time consuming. So what I started off with, my waterfall is 7 inches wide by 9 inches tall. There are 3 larger pieces of chipboard and and 2 spines. So this is kind of what you start with. Sorry, let me get that glue out of the way. So you'll need 1 piece of chipboard that's 7 by 9. Actually, you'll need 2 of those. So cut yourself 2 pieces that are 7 by 9. You're going to want a third one. Now, you can make this one 7 by 9 also, but I decided to take a 1/2 inch off of this rightmost side because, just to eliminate some bulk. Pardon me. And then also you're going to want 2 spines. Sorry, I covered that up with the score tape, but 1.5 inches by 9 inches tall, and the second one is 1.5 by 9. All right, so then what you want to do, I am doing this on craft colored cardstock. Now, if you've watched any of my videos or any of my tutorials, you'll know that I'm a huge fan of the artisan cardstock that we get from Country Craft Creations. I only had 7 sheets of the craft color left, and I was worried I was going to run out. So anyway, so I just had these 12 by 12 craft sheets in my stash, and it was just in the plastic bag. I'm not sure what brand it is, and it actually feels like a grocery store shopping bag, you know, those brown paper bags. So I'm praying that this doesn't crack. So what I did was I took 2 pieces of 12 by 11 cardstock. And I attached them together with score tape. I don't know if you can see, but there's a seam right here. You just add a piece of score tape, a 1/4 inch score tape, or you can use glue. Just attach the two pieces together, and then that still wasn't long enough for all of the chipboard. So I cut another piece that was 6 inches by 11, and then you'll see as we go further, I ended up cutting a good portion of it off. So this is probably, 3 inches wide. I didn't really need the entire amount. So then what you're going to want to do is take your chipboard. Now, I'm actually doing an experiment with this, and it seems to be holding fine. I always use score tape on the back of my chipboard when I'm attaching it to my cardstock, but I'm going to step outside my comfort zone. And actually, not only just score tape, but I love the score tape sheets. Tammy sells in her store. They're 8.5 by 11. So, I mean, it's just so nice. You just cut it to the exact dimension of your chipboard, slap it on, and stick it down. There's no thought needed at all. But instead, today, since I didn't have any of those sheets left, I'm using the art glitter glue. I use it for everything else, but adhering my chipboard to my cardstock. So we'll see what happens. So here's the pattern that you need for your pieces of chipboard. So you want, in position number 1, if you want to call it that, 7 by 9. Then you want a spine at 1.5 by 9. Then you want another 7 by 9. So that is going to be the center of your book. So the first 7 by 9 is this piece. The second 7 by 9, so here's position 1. Here's the spine, first spine. Here's the second 7 by 9. Here's the second spine. And inside here is this rightmost piece of chipboard. I hope that makes sense. All right, so let's start that over. So you need a 7 by 9, 1.5 by 9. 7 by 9, 1.5 by 9, and then again, I cut this down. I shortened this a little to 6.5 by 9. Okay? And I adhered all of it to my cardstock, this craft color, using the art glitter glue. Again, you can use score tape, whatever. So I'm just checking to see how it works for me. So the next thing you want to do anywhere, I'm sorry, I should have said before you lay down your second piece, make sure you leave yourself at least 1/4 of an inch. Now I'm a little nervous here and here because I have a little less than 1/4 of an inch in between. I'm not sure if it's going to crack or not. If it cracks, I'm not going to tell you anyway. So you'll never see it, right? And you'll never tell. But yeah, so leave yourself 1/4 of an inch, and the best way to guarantee that you have 1/4 of an inch is use a piece of, adhere your first piece of chipboard, get yourself a piece of 1/4 inch score tape if you have it, lay it up against the side, and then you'll know exactly that you have exactly 1/4 of an inch. Unfortunately, the only size score tape I have is 5 rolls of 3/8 inch and 2 rolls of 1/8 inch. So, I'm just winging it today. So, set down all your chipboard. Very, very important thing that I learned a long time ago is anywhere that you have a joint, so here's your first piece of chipboard and your first gap, and then your second piece. Anytime in between there, that's a joint. So you'll want to put a piece of score tape or some very firm adhesive, or some strong adhesive on either side of the joint, which will help hold the paper down, and it won't buckle or bubble over here, if that makes sense. All right, so you're going to go ahead and do that for each of the joints. So if you're following along with me, you're going to have 4 joints, right? So put all your score tape down. And then what I do is I also go along, sorry, you can't see over here, it's so long. I go and I put score tape around the perimeter. You can see here all the way around the perimeter of the chipboard. Okay, you see it's all the way around. And then I also put score tape around the perimeter of the cardstock because that's where we're going to wrap it. Okay. Oh, and one important thing I did leave out, I apologize, is I learned this from Ginger Rock. I've taken several of her classes, and it was just ingenious to me. So, remember I said I used an extra piece of cardstock that I cut to 6 by 11 because I thought I was going to need more. She's proven to me a couple of times over that you really don't need any more to wrap than 1 inch overhang of the cardstock to wrap your chipboard. If you have 2 inches, it's okay. It's just going to be a waste of paper, and it could create some bulk. And then another thing I struggled with in the beginning was keeping my chipboard pieces straight. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I think my eyes are crooked, but the one way to avoid all that is, I don't know if you can tell, but there is a score line right here. So pick either side, the right side or the left side, and score it at 1 inch. That way you know you have your 1 inch to wrap your chipboard on this side. And then also, I know this is very, very long, but you can also score the bottom or the top, however you'd like. Come along the bottom, put this in your scoreboard this way, and score 1 inch along the bottom. So that serves two purposes. Number one, it helps you train your paper for, helps break down the fibers for when you're going to wrap it. It just makes it a little more pliable. But also, too, you have that straight edge in which to line up your chipboard. It was ingenious to me. I don't know. So anyway, so I did all that. And then one additional thing that I do is just go ahead and take my stylus and along the edge of the chipboard, just give it a, just score it again. Just again in an effort to help break up the fibers, help make it easier to wrap. Okay, so I do that around the other two sides that weren't scored. Okay, so now the fun part is removing all this crazy score tape. I'm going to do one side at a time. So I'm going to actually, oops, can't see what I'm doing. So I'm going to take halfway down, and don't forget to take off the score tape paper in the middle. Can't tell you how many times I've forgotten about that, and it was too late. Just kind of keep that, the rest of it covered up so it doesn't get stuck to anything else, or I've had it get stuck in my hair, believe it or not. Alright, so we're just going to pull this down. Oh, I'll tell you what. Okay. Just getting that out of the way so that we could wrap it. Alright, I'm going to do the same over here. Just pull this down a little bit. Take off this score tape along the top. Okay? Then what I do is use my table. Okay, I'm going to turn this around so that it's easier for me. I'm going to use my table. Again, I scored that along the top of the chipboard, but use my table to kind of help show the paper what I wanted to do. Okay, so I noticed that I didn't take it off over here. Excuse me. Oh, one thing that we need to do before we actually wrap it is we need to miter the corners. And all miter means is cut out the corner. There's 1,000,001 suggestions on how to do this out there on YouTube. Some people will cut this square right here, cut this out. I just like to go in, leave about 1/8 of an inch, and just cut out my corner so that it looks something like that. Again, I should have done that before I took the score tape off. So I'm going to do the bottom. So you can see what I'm doing. So see, here's the edge of my chipboard. I'm going to cut as close as I can without taking away too much. Okay. Then let's go this way. Sorry if that's making you nauseous. Do the same thing here. And then down here. Very important step. This actually, when you wrap it, your chipboard, it actually takes a lot of the bulkiness away. There's nothing worse when you're working on the project and you're putting so much into it when you realize you have bumpy corners. This just really makes me mad. All right, so now at this point, you're just going to go ahead and start wrapping. And all that means is we're just covering the chipboard. And as you can see, because I already started because I used my table and started to bend it, it made it a lot easier. And that's a very hard thing to explain. You just have to experience it for yourself. All right, so then we're going to go ahead and tear the rest of this score tape off. Or in case if you're using glue, like art glitter glue or a Scotch glue or whatever, you can just add it as you go. Okay. Now some people I have seen at some retreats and other classes and things like that, some people like to do the long side first and then fold over the short side. I prefer to do the two long sides first. There's no right or wrong way. I don't know. That must just be how I started to do it when I first started making albums, and it's kind of become a habit. So again, just use your table and start that paper folding over. Then go ahead and wrap it up. And burnish it. Give your tape a really good burnish. Then I take it one step further, and I just like to flatten my the bottom of my chipboard. And let's turn that over. Now, so you should have something that looks like that. Again, my 7x9 piece, the first piece is on my left, and the 6.5x9 is on my right. Okay, so now we need to wrap these sides. So here is where, remember we cut out that that corner? I hope you can see there's a little, so you can see the chipboard underneath, right? Because you can see it's that lighter color. There's like this little teeny tiny bit that's hanging over the corner of that chipboard. I push that in with my thumbnail. It's just a tiny little bit. And then what that does is actually hides that little edge of the chipboard. Then I use my desk again to start the bend in the paper. And then fold it over. And yay! It's a pretty edge, or a pretty corner. So you see it has a really nice corner. Most of that is going to be covered up with pattern paper, but there's no bulk. See, it's just, the only bulkiness is the piece of paper that's wrapping over it, and that's awesome. It's a nice clean corner. So let's do that again on this side. Push in that little extra piece there. Same over here. And eventually, once you start making enough of these, you'll get, you know, with right practice makes perfect. So you'll know exactly where to cut so that you're not going to have to tuck that in. Nobody ever believes me, but eventually you'll be a pro. All right. So there's that. That is your chipboard wrapped. So if you recall, I had to use a couple of pieces of 12x12 paper, right? This is the seam, the first seam. Oh, my finger stuck to the score tape. Here is the second seam. That's going to be covered with the pattern paper, whatever you choose, whatever paper collection you choose to use. So you don't have to worry about that. One thing that I do suggest is when you do wrap chipboard, you don't ever, just make sure you don't put the seam, you know what I mean, in the middle of a couple of pieces of chipboard, because that'll weaken it. I hope that makes sense. You always want it to be, you know, somewhere, you know, a couple of inches in from the edge, if not perfectly in the center of your piece of chipboard. And I just realized I neglected to cut my paper that's going to cover this chipboard. So again, I don't know if you can see that, but that is 9 inches tall. I'm going to go ahead and cut my paper 8 7/8 by 12. I'm going to have to get a couple of sheets, so I apologize. Just bear with me 1 second. I have my dolly cutters over here off to the side. Okay, so there's the first piece. That's going to cover that up. I have a second piece, and I'm going to have to use another tiny little, oh, actually that might work out. No, I'm going to have to add another tiny little piece. So what I need to do is I can either use glue, but for, to save some time, I'm going to go ahead and add score tape around the perimeter of each of these pieces. And I'm so sorry, I got everything else ready. Completely forgot about this. Ay, ay, ay. So I hope if you get a chance that you'll go over to my YouTube channel and check out the project that I made with, this project that I made with the BoBunny Yuletide Carol paper. There's, in my mind, there's like two types of Christmas paper. The cartoonish kind of Christmas. I'm not a big fan of pink and mint green for Christmas. I'm like a traditional red and green, gold and silver. I even like silver and blue for Christmas. So I wasn't too sure how I was going to feel about this paper till I started putting it all together. And when I saw that it was the gorgeous burgundies and deep greens, and there's a little bit of gold in it, it made me really, really happy. So if you get a chance, go check that out. Okay, so you can see I put score tape around the perimeter. I'm also going to put a couple of pieces right here in the center. I just don't want my paper to bubble. If you remember, I mentioned about it could bubble if you don't put if you don't put tape at the joints. So this is just, this part's not really, crucial, but it's just, I'm a worrywart, so let's just take off these. So again, I hope I said that, my book is 9 inches tall, so I want to leave myself a little bit of a border. So I cut my pattern paper down to 8 7/8. You could go even shorter if you wanted to, but I thought 8 7/8 is really, that's my standard, 7/8 of an inch. Or if I'm making a 7-inch book, I'll do 6 7/8. Okay. So here we go. So this is my left side of my book. So I'm just going to go ahead, line this up, giving myself a little bit of border all the way around. And just, as Ginger Rop says, slap it down. Okay, so that's the first piece. So you notice again, so far I haven't folded up any of my, I haven't formed the book yet. I haven't created any of the folds. I don't like to do that until I actually put the lining, the paper lining, for two reasons. Number one, I put that little bit of score tape in between each one. I like and you'll see when I do fold it, excuse me, I like to push that paper into that score tape. I find that helps stop the cracking. Okay, so hope you can see this. And then I'm just going to line these up. Actually, I might not have to cut another piece. Yay! If I line these up, perfect. Now I do have, sorry, wrong one. So see that I have about, I don't know, it might be a 1/4 inch, a little less than a 1/4 of an inch there, but I'm okay with that because I'm probably going to put some pattern paper there anyway. So You're going to want to burnish all that down. Make sure that gets a good stick. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and fold. Because as you see, this is, right, so this has 1, 2, 3, 4 creases. So you kind of have to, I usually, because I'm right-handed, I start from the left. I don't know if that, you know, if you're left-handed, you might start the opposite direction, whatever you choose. So here you just kind of hold your finger right around where you think, see, so you just kind of start it, give it a little bit of a, ooh, that one's going to be tight. I knew I didn't leave enough space. Shh, don't tell anybody. Okay, just kind of help it along. Don't push it, you know, don't get too pushy yet. And then go ahead, because you know there's another one an inch and a half away. So you see that right there? So kind of just give that, help it along a little bit. Then we know we have another one over here. Just lift up your right side of your book. Just a little bit at a time. And then there's another one, another inch and a half away. Okay, so what you should have is something like this. So you see how I mentioned earlier, you could make that this flap 7 by 9. I just choose to keep it to fight any bulk in, it helps me hold everything together to make that just a 1/2 inch smaller. And plus I think it looks nice. So, all right, so now, remember I said I like to push the pattern paper into the crease or into that joint. So I take my bone folder, don't use anything that's pointy. I use the, you know, the rounded edge, and just kind of like help that paper along. Push that in there, and then that paper's like it's pushing that paper into that score tape. So hopefully, as you can see, or I hope you can see, it didn't crack. Fingers crossed. Let's go to the second one. So I'm really nervous about this one. It's not, it's a little bit of a tight, yeah, but it's actually, I think it's going to be okay. Okay, and let's do this one. You know, the time, I mentioned this is the most boring part for me, but at the same time I recognize that it's crucial to get the, you know, a good foundation. Especially if you give these away as gifts, these albums, or if you sell them at a craft show. The worst thing that could happen is, you know, you have a customer, opens it up and it cracks, or it looks raggy. So the time and attention you give it now is worth it in the end. So there's our book. So yay, we did it. All right, so at this point, so yeah, so let's just get started. Oh. You can cover all this with pattern paper if you want. I usually do that part last. I like to make the pages first. So we're going to start off by making this little waterfall. And this waterfall actually is a pocket page. Okay? So, all right, let's jump into that. Whoops. Whoop. I'm folding 2 books into one. All right. So we can actually you could set your base, or I'm sorry, your covers aside. All right, and what you're gonna need for this first, let me get my pages together here. This is my stack of waterfall stuff. What you're gonna need okay, I'm gonna start with the horizontal envelopes first. Okay, if you don't have an envelope punch board, which I have, I have one that broke the very first, no lie, the first 10 minutes I had it. This little piece popped right off. I never did send it back, and it still works. I hope it still works after I just broke it again. Okay, so what you're going to want to get an envelope this size, which is, the envelope is about 4 1/8, 3 1/8 by 4 1/8 about. You're going to want to start off with a piece of cardstock. Now, in my project, I used the 6x6 pattern paper. You can definitely use that to make the envelope, but for this one, I think I'm going to change it up, and I made it out of the cardstock. So, if you don't have the envelope punch board, go ahead and cut yourself. I've decided that I want 4 envelopes in each of my, 4 waterfall pages or 4 waterfall envelopes. In my other book, I made 6, but in this one, I just want 4. So you're going to want, I already made the horizontals, okay? So those are already finished. You're going to want actually regular cardstock. You can do 3 by 4, 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. If you want to go bigger, you can, but if you're following along with my project, I would recommend 3 by 4. Okay. So let me show you what I did. So here's a piece of my craft cardstock at 6 by 6. Follow down here. I don't know if you can see this. I don't use this all that often. Oh, it doesn't want to focus. Come on, focus. Okay, you just got to believe me. So 6 by 6. Piece of paper size 6 by 6 will give you a 3 by 4 envelope. So it tells you, okay, if that's exactly what you want, your score line, your very first score line is going to be at 2 5/8 inches. Then across the top here, which is really nice, is they're all 1/8 of an inch. You're going to take the top left of your paper, your pattern paper or your cardstock, whatever you're using, and line it up at 2 5/8. Okay, I know you can't see that, but that's at 2 5/8. I think it is. Yes. Then you punch. Sorry, that was loud because I'm on my glass mat. Then you score. There's actually a score line here, so I hope you can see that line. Turn it to the left. Then you want to match up this little doohickey with that score line and punch. And then score. Okay? And then you turn it around, take this edge, line that up at 2 5/8. And also at the same time, you want to make sure it lines up with this score line. Punch. Score. Rotate it one more time. Line up the doohickey with your score line and punch. And score. It really is that easy. So as you can see, you have the little rectangle inside there. And now you can go ahead and do that with all, make all of your envelopes. I have already made, like I said, I've made all the horizontals, and I made 3 of the 4 verticals. But I'm going to show you how to put together the vertical. From this point, it's just a matter of, if you want to, there is a corner rounder on this envelope punch board. It kind of lives back here. You can put it in there and punch it. I'll just do it. But it only gives you, I think that's 1/4 of an inch. I like to see the more chubbier 1/2 inch. So I use my corner chomper. Or you don't have to do this. You could keep them pointy if you want. Oops, that's a bad one. I just prefer them to look a little rounder. Alright, so again, this is going to be one of my vertical. So just go ahead and score on those score lines. Okay, so this is going to be a vertical one. So one of these, oops, this one. So you can choose to fold these in with the bottom flap up. You can leave the bottom flap there and do it this way. It looks like I did it this way. So I'm just going to take a little bit of my glue, put some glue here. Oh, are you kidding me? This never clogs. Ugh. Okay. Put some glue here, put a little bit here, and then kind of hold that down for a second and then bring that up. Okay, it's that easy. So there's your little envelope. Okay, and then, so you're wondering how the heck are you going to turn that into a waterfall? Well, then I created a, what do we call these? Construction strips or tabs or whatever you want to call them. So what I did was measured the width of this. So this is a little bit like 3 1/8 inches long, and I cut it to 1 inch. Okay. And then I scored halfway down the middle. So now you have 2 1/2-inch tabs. So it looks something like that. So I take that and put glue on it. Okay. Then I'm going to take that. So you want this folded. And you want to line this up with, on the back of the envelope, line it up with that fold line without going over that fold line. Which I can't guarantee that I didn't do that. And so see, that becomes the flap. If you've ever done a waterfall, that is what's going to attach to your base. And then all your other ones are going to attach after it. So you can see for the horizontal, there's a vertical envelope, there's a horizontal envelope. They each have a 1/2-inch tab on the back. Now what you can do, if you wanted to, is you could do one vertical, one horizontal. You can offset them, which actually might not be too bad. But for this project, you would have to adjust you'll see the width of your pocket that we're going to set this on. But yeah, so that's how you make an envelope. It's easy peasy. All right, so now what you're going to need, we're going to attach these envelopes, these vertical envelopes, to this base piece. So the pocket piece is 3 1/2 inches, I'm sorry, the pocket base, if you want to call that, you'll need 2 pieces of paper. One's 4 1/4 by 9 1/2, and then you're going to score that at 1/2 inch, and then 3/4 inch, just to give it a little bit of a gusset, and you'll see why in a minute. So you'll do that on one long side, and then you'll do a 1/2 inch on the 2 short sides. Can you see that? So you see I scored it, put it in the scoreboard, excuse me, with the 9 1/2 inch side at the top. Score 1/2 inch here, rotate it, 1/2 inch. Then you're going to put your 4 1/4 inch side in the top, score it 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch. Okay? And then you could set this piece aside. And then what we're going to need here is this 3 1/2 by 8 1/2. And that, once all these score lines are scored and folded, that's going to fit. Oh, crap. This was supposed to be 9 1/2 inches tall. But that's okay. We'll glue it on. We'll glue it on instead of... Yeah, not a problem. Anyway, so... Yeah, I'm sorry guys. I'm going to go ahead and cut another one that's actually 4 1/2 inches. Oh no, I don't have to do that. I don't have to do that. Sorry. That's what these tabs are. Scratch all that. Hopefully when I edit this I can cut that out. So, okay, so let's stick with the 3 1/2 by 8 1/2. Now you can choose to cover this with pattern paper if you want to. You can see that the vertical ones, there's going to be a little bit of a border. That doesn't bother me all that much. So I'm going to leave it the way it is. All right, so I like to turn mine this way. I like to work this way. It's just easier for me. So this is going to be the top of my waterfall. This is the bottom. Actually, I'm going to mark myself a little arrow so that I know that that's the bottom. Okay, so I went ahead and put all of my little connector tabs on the back of these. So you can choose to angle these edges or tab these edges if you want to. I don't think it's necessary. So give yourself some glue. All right, so I'm going to do my best to line this up straight. Make it as straight as you can, as close to the top of that base page as you can. So just let that flop up. So I hope you can see that. So see, and then you want to take your bone folder. Whoops. So there you go. First one's on. Looks a little crooked, but that's okay. Okay, let's go to the second one. Then you're going to want to line this one up right with the edge of the one in front of it. Try to keep these as straight as you can. They're going to be off because a little bit here and there. I think that's okay. Although it'll make me insane. So you can see it's off a little bit, but you just don't want it to overhang on either side. This is the same way you would do any other waterfall. Okay? And then there's your next one. Oh, it looks really off. Oh, crap. Back it up. Back it up. Oh, no. Whew. Okay. I didn't follow my own instructions. I put it too far up on the one before it. So, whew. Thank goodness it didn't dry. Okay. There we go. But that's the beauty of it. It's handmade. It's not supposed to be perfect. If you're like me, you try to make it as perfect as you can. Okay. Okay. Line that up. Oops. Oops. All right. See, that's still off a little bit. What is going on? Don't you love to see when you're watching somebody do this and they make the same mistakes you would make? Makes me happy. Okay, so it makes me happy that it's not just me. Okay, I've got a little bit of glue that oozed out. Okay. The last one. What a nightmare. Okay. All right. For some reason that second one does not want to stick. There we go. Just keep working it. just got hot in here. Okay, so there is your little waterfall, and you can go in and the reason I did these is the 3x4 cut apart cards that are in most collections these days. They fit perfectly inside there. You can cut a piece of pattern paper for the front, or you can just leave it plain, or you can just, use some of the stickers, or however you want to work it. All right, so that is your vertical waterfall. One thing that I did in my book is underneath each one of the, actually I did it on the horizontal side, I put a magnet here, and I put it on each one, and then I found the magnets were all sticking to each other and everything was sticking up, and it's really not a problem, but my suggestion this time would be to just use one magnet if you have magnets. And of course, this is not long enough. We need to cut a waterfall closure. So the bottom of the waterfall is, I don't know if you could see that, but that's at 4 1/4 inches. So I kind of, I don't know, somewhere in the middle of the end of the envelope flap. Maybe I'll cut this at 4 1/2 inches by 1 inch. So let's just cut that real quick. Let's go 1 inch by 4 1/2. Actually, let me do 5, just in case. I'm going to score that at 1/2 inch. Okay. Score that at 1/2 inch, because that'll tuck up underneath. Oh, for heaven's sake. Okay. Let's put some score tape on that. That's what we're going to adhere to the waterfall with. Alright, let's see how we like that. Perfect. See? So there's your little closure. I'm going to use a small basic gray magnet for this one. You don't have to use a magnet. You can use a piece of ribbon. You can just glue a piece of ribbon underneath and another piece here and tie it. There's a lot of tutorials on how to do that. I have done that myself. It looks really, really cute. Okay, so the way I do this is I take one minus and one plus side of the magnet. Take off, whoops, the adhesive on one side. Let me line that back up. Okay, so I need it right about, put the magnet right about there. Okay? Then take off the other side. Line this back up. Come on. Stick it out. It's kind of close, but I'll cover that up with pattern paper as best I can. So at this point, let's kind of take this score tape off. Put that underneath. Again, make it as straight as you can make it. And that will hold your waterfall closed. Now it's bending up a little bit because it needs to be attached to the pocket. So then what you do is you can cover each one of these with pattern paper on the back. You can put pattern paper here. You can make this a tiny little pocket, however you want to do it. Okay, so let's set that aside and pull out the piece that is this one? Yes. 4 1/4 by 9 1/2. And as I said, we scored it at, from this side at a 1/2 inch and 3/4, and then also a 1/2 inch on each short side. What we're gonna do, see how we have this little, oops, come on now. We have the little intersection here. You're gonna wanna cut up to that 3/4 inch score mark, and then just give that a little, angle that edge. Do the same thing on the other side. Then we're going to do the same over here. So we're just cutting those away. So you end up with something like that. So you can go ahead and fold your score lines. We are actually making the base of the pocket. Okay. So there's your first score line. There's your second score line. So what we've done is just given ourselves a 1/2 inch gusset, so that when you put it in the book, that you'll have that little 1/4 inch gusset there, kind of expand the pocket. Okay, so what we want to do is fold those two 1/2 inch tabs inwards. Okay, and then we're going to add some glue to the tabs. Or you could use score tape. I don't like to use score tape on pockets because a lot of times, you know, when score tape doesn't dry completely. I mean, that's my favorite adhesive, but it doesn't completely dry. If you put tags in and out or whatever it is you're putting in there, it gets stuck in the score tape, and it's super duper 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 annoying. So all we're going to do is line those up, line up the edge of the paper with that score line as best you can without going over the score line, because you don't want any interference. Alright, this is getting on my nerve. Okay. Alright. I'm going to hold that down for a minute. Okay. And there, whoops. There. It looks a little funky, but it will maybe I should have used score tape. Give it a minute to dry. And there's your pocket. Which I, of course, have this folded the wrong way. Okay. There you go. That's your first waterfall page done. Okay? I think I did that backwards. Anyway, I did that backwards. Okay, so we are going to put the short side on the left instead of on the right. Yep. Did it backwards. That's okay. Live and learn. Alright, so let's make the horizontal one. And what you need for that is your 4 or 6, whatever you decide to use. You could use more. You're just going to go ahead and make your vertical envelopes. Cut yourself 4 1-inch by 4-inch tabs. Score them down the middle and attach them just like we did on the other one. You're going to need a waterfall base that is 4 1/4 by 8 1/2. Then you're going to want the pocket base, if you want to call it that, 5 by 9 1/2. With the 9 1/2 inch side on your scoreboard, we're going to score, excuse me, at a 1/2 inch. Whoops. Rotate it, score a 1/2 inch again. Put the short side or the 5-inch side in your scoreboard, score at a 1/2 inch and 3/4 of an inch. Okay, set that aside, and then we're going to go ahead and get our base. That's 4 1/4 by 8 1/2. And we're just going to repeat the same process we did with the vertical envelopes. Add some glue to your tabs. Again, line it up as best you can. Make it as straight as possible. There's one. And of course it's crooked. Oh, ay caramba. I swear, some days my eyes are crossed. Okay, there's the first one. The second. I just want to go ahead, line that up. You don't want to go over either edge. Keep it as straight as possible. Give that glue a minute to dry. Okay, there's number 2. Number 3. Line that up again. Well, some of these might look a little off because it all depends on how you scored when you were making each envelope. But I find that it's really not that big a deal. So I think it looks cute. I did notice that this one is a little bit off. Try that. And here's number 4. And we'll just add envelope number 4 to the mix. Gets easier with practice. I know. Looks like I'm struggling a little bit, but okay. See, that one came together really quickly. Right? So there is your 4. Just kind of give it a little bend a little bit. It's a little bit stiff. This paper I'm using is quite stiff, so. Alright, let me see what I need. Alright, at this point, I need a closure. Again, you can use ribbon, seam binding. I have a piece that's 1 inch by 4 1/2 inches. I'm going to go ahead and score that. The 4 1/2 inch side, I'm going to score it at a 1/2 inch. Actually, I'm doing 3/8 on this one. Going to fold my score line. Add some score tape. Okay. Oops. A little wonky. Alright, so again, I'm going to use a magnet on here again. So let's line that up. I'm going to give it a little bit of space. Give myself another set of magnets, another positive and a negative. I love these basic gray magnets. I don't know of anywhere else you can get them, but at Country Craft Creations, I know that Tammy has a relationship with the basic gray owner. Don't know if he sells them to anybody else, but there you go. Snap that down. Okay. So that's gonna actually, until it's actually worked a little bit, it's gonna bump up like that. But it does settle down. So okay, so now we want to take that 5 by 9.5 inch piece and do the same that we did before. Just get rid of that corner. Tab that corner. Do the same on this side. Let's fold our score lines. Oh, wait a minute. Fold it up, the 1/2 inch up, the other 1/2 inch. Okay, so now what we're going to want to do, since I screwed up the other one, I mean it wasn't a screw up, it was an artistic opportunity. Since the shorter, skinnier one is going to be on my left, you're going to want the other side to mirror it. So we're going to actually take those score lines and fold them under, okay? Because we want to put... No, sorry. You want the long side, you want to fold under. The short side, the top and bottom, you want to fold up. So what we're doing is making the pocket. So we are going to fold the 1/2 inch side, 1/2 inch tabs in. And we're going to attach it like that, so that our pocket opening is on our left. Okay? So let's seal that down. Again, with your score tape or your favorite glue. Mine is art glitter glue. Okay. Give that a second to do its thing. I'm just going to go ahead and seal the pocket. You can make another tab here. It's really not necessary. I like to just glue it shut. But it's your project. You can do whatever you want. Okay, we'll line that up. I'm going to have to trim that off a little bit. Okay. You can see I have a tiny little bit of overhang right there. I think I'm going to go ahead and trim that off on mine. If that doesn't bother you, you can leave it. Bothers me a little bit. So, and there is the pocket. Alright. So you can set those two aside, let them dry completely. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make our other two pockets. You're going to want, hey, I'm missing a piece. Am I missing a piece? It was just here. Okay, I'm going to have to cut another one. Alright, so we have one left-hand side. Pocket page and one right-hand side pocket page. So what you'll need, we'll just start with the right since I have it in my hand. You'll need one piece that's 6.5 by 9.5. Okay. Then we are going to put in our scoreboard. Scored a 1/2 inch on each side. So put it 1/2 inch, turn it around, 1/2 inch, put the 6.5 inch side on the top right, score at 1/2 inch and then 3/4 of an inch. Again, we're just making a little gusset like we did earlier. All right, so then we're going to do the exact same thing that we just did and get rid of that corner. Okay, then we're going to close that up. I'm sorry, trim that off. Trim that corner. Just get rid of some bulk. And actually, when you are making a pocket and you trim it like this, it helps the tags slide in and out more easily. All right, so then you're going to want to fold and burnish. So there's that first score line. So you want to kind of take your time on this and make a nice crisp fold line. I know it looks like I'm going quickly because I am. Okay. All right, so let me show you what we just made. We are making this page here. So this has 2 4x6 tags in it, or 4 1/4 by 6. Inside there, you see that little, right there? That little zigzaggy thing? That actually, it's just a piece of folded paper that actually turns this one big pocket into 2 smaller pockets. All right, so this just slides right inside there. And then this one, same thing, slides right inside there. Keeps everything nice and neat, right? So that's what we just made the right hand side. Same thing, but it's on the right hand side, okay? All right, so, and the way we get that little pocket, that little zigzaggy thing, is I just cut a piece of cardstock that it's 3 inches by 1 1/2, and I scored at a 1/2 inch and 1 inch. Then I just folded it in a little Z shape. See that? There it is. It's actually backwards. See the Z? Now you can make it. Let's see, how wide is our page here? Our page is 5 5/8. No, 5 3/4 wide. But it's not that big of a deal. It's not a big waste of paper, but I don't see the need for using the whole 5 3/4 inches. So what I do, where's my pencil, is I just come halfway down. So if this is 8 1/2, we need this at 4 1/4. Oh, actually, I'll do it this way. So 1 2 3 4. Let's see, let me line it up. 4 1/4 is right here. It just gives you equal pocket sizes. So then I put a piece of score tape on each opposite side, on the top of the Z and the bottom of the Z, if you want to call it that. And then just going to remove one piece. Now you can come in a little bit. You can do it right on the edge, whatever you think. I just like to move it in just a little bit. And just put that in as straight as you can. Okay, and then the next thing we're going to do, let's see, we want this like this, is we are going to put some glue. We're going to seal down our pocket. Oops, crazy. Okay, then we're going to also take off this little piece of score tape, and I'm going to run a bead of glue right by that. That score line just helps seal the pocket. I'm going to start up here. Glue that down. Taking care not to cover that, or not to cover that score line. There's that little zigzag. And sealing up my pocket. Whoop. Come on now. So So it will attach to the book like that. A little bit off right here. I swear I don't know how that happens. Okay, let's turn that little overhang off. Again, if it doesn't bother you, you can leave it. But we just made ourselves a little bypass pocket. Alright, that was so much fun. We're going to do that again on the other side. Actually, just doesn't like it. Okay. So again, we're going to want another piece that is 6.5 by 9.5. And I'm going to have to go ahead and cut myself another 5 3/4. Oops. 5 3/4 by 8.5. I must have used that piece of paper by mistake. Okay, then let's just go ahead and cut these out. Cut out our corners. Let's fold on all the score lines. Fold and burnish. Burnish, burnish, burnish. My paper is a little bit of a heavier weight, so just making sure that I get nice crisp folds. Alright, so let's see. So we have this one with a pocket facing on the left. So on this one, I want my pocket to come from the right-hand side. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and line this back up again, make my mark at 4 1/4-ish. Okay. Then again, we have our piece of, calling it the zigzag thingamajig. It is 3 inches wide by 3 inches tall by 1.5 inches wide. Score it 1/2 inch and 1 inch with a piece of cardstock. Then you fold it, put a piece of cardstock on the opposing ends. So I'm going to take the score tape off. I'm sorry, I think I said opposing cardstock on the opposing ends. I meant score tape. And then I'm just going to go ahead and line that up, keeping it as straight as I can at the 4 1/4 mark. Alright, so this is my left-hand side here. And just make sure I do this right for you. Okay, score mark, score mark. Did I cut that short? I think I cut that a little bit short. Okay. Alright, so then let's put down the glue. Some glue here. And this time I'm going to glue this because I'm going to have to, it's like my cut was a little bit short, so I'm going to line up. Who took my craft knife? Oh. Oh, if you could just see the nightmare I have here on my desk. Okay, I'm going to line up these edges. just give that a good burnish. So there we have our two little pockets. Our one pocket made into two. We'll have one that they'll go in this way, and on this one, the tags will go in this direction. Okay, so that's finished. So the next thing we're going to do is make the inside center. I made a pocket. I made, I don't know if it's officially called an L-shaped pocket. That's what I call it. Excuse me. So I cut a piece of paper for the pocket, 7 1/4 by 9. Put it in my scoreboard. 7 1/4 inch side is here. Scored it a 1/2 inch. Turned it around. Scored it a 1/2 inch. And then on the 9-inch side, I scored it a 1/2 inch. So you have a 1/2 inch on all three sides. Then what I did is I took I went and I made a mark from the very bottom of the paper. I made a mark at 4 inches, and I'll show you why I did that. Next thing you want to do is, well, go ahead and tab your corners. Right, we're just basically cutting out that little square. So this is the bottom of your pocket. This is the top. I'm going to go ahead and angle that one. Okay. And then what we're going to do is, you can either put this in your paper cutter or do it, or I'm just going to eyeball it as best I can. I'm going to mark up, cut up to that score line where I marked it at 4 inches. And then I'm going to cut away that tab. So you should have something like this, and then you can actually just angle that. Okay? Now, what we're going to want to do, get out your cutter, and so you have the edge, the very tippy edge here of your pocket, and then you want to line up the edge, line up your cutter at that 4-inch mark. So basically we're just angling this and cutting it away. And we're just making an angled pocket. Okay? So you should have, at this point, you should have something that looks like this. And you're going to just fold and burnish on your score lines. And also this tiny little tab. Alright, and then you'll see that becomes your pocket. Now you can choose to trim it off a little bit up here if you want to. I'm going to see what it looks like in the book first before I do that. So yeah, at this point we can put it in the book. So grab your book, your cover that you set aside earlier. Here are your 2 spines. So this is your center piece, and that's where this pocket's going to go. It's going to go right next to that fold. Now you can, if you want, since I made it shorter, you can, if you want, leave this side open. Actually, why don't we do that? Let's just go in on this little flap here. Let's just cut that flap away. Just right along that score mark, just get rid of that flap. Bye-bye. Gone. So now you only have 2. Okay? So go ahead and get your score tape or your wet glue. And let's just glue up those little tabs. Alright. If you decide you want your pocket to go the other direction, you can just, flip it over this way, put the tabs down this way, and your pocket will come from the right. But I'm just going to do this from the left. You can do whatever you want. It's your project. So kind of line that up. Now you can choose to pattern this cover this with pattern paper first. I usually like a border around mine, so I decided not to do that. And you will find that your pattern paper will slide right in there beautifully. Yeah, so there's your pocket. And you don't have to worry about this printing. Your pattern paper will cover all that. So that is the first piece put in. Isn't that exciting? It's so fun. Now, before we go any further, you can make a decision whether you want to close your book with magnets, or I think on this one, I am going to use ribbon to close mine. I haven't decided which paper I'm going to use yet, which paper collection. I'm really bummed. Tammy has a new manufacturer, I guess they are, in the store. I think she just put it up this weekend. It's called Stamperia or Stamperia or Stamperia. I'm not really sure how to say it. But the one I wanted sold out, so I'm really bummed. I hope I get it in my next design team kit. But anyway, so yeah, so at this point, if you decide you want to use magnets, I would not use the little ones. I would recommend the bigger, the fatter basic gray ones. I think these are just called large. What I did in my other book is I used 3 to hold it closed. And I put them in about an inch over and an inch down. So I did about 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. And I did it the same way you saw me put that in the waterfall. Just set one side down, put the other one on top of it, and then close the cover. And then just make sure you give it a good, a good burnish. And then I put a piece of score tape over each magnet on both sides. So you'll have a magnet here, here, and here, 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 and here, and that should give you enough strength to hold it shut. Okay, let me just show you. So inside here, I could feel it. I know you can't see it, but I have a magnet here. There's one here, and the last one is here. And the corresponding ones are here, here, and here. So let me close this up so you can hear it. You hear that? It just holds it shut. It holds it shut beautifully. It's plenty strong to keep it shut. But if you should decide that you want to use ribbon instead, you have a really nice, a wider ribbon or a thinner ribbon or whatever. You can just, I normally would put like 2 inches, put a piece of double-sided sticky tape down, depending on how wide your ribbon is. I tend to like to use a little bit of a wider ribbon for closure, just, holds it a little better. I wouldn't use like a 1/4 of an inch. I would use at least a 1/2 inch or wider. Take it in about 2 inches here, put the ribbon down, and then another piece around the back. And then, you would just attach it and tie it to help hold the book closed. I think ribbon closures are gorgeous. There's a lot of different options. You could use the stretchy stuff, the stretchy cording I have. You could do that. You could make a loop of it, punch a hole here in the border before you attach anything in your book. Punch a hole and loop it around, and that will help hold it closed. Oh, and it's a lot of fun too when you use this stuff as your closure to dangle some charms off of it. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Yeah, so I'm not going to do that closure yet, but again, I love magnets. I just don't have enough of them. I'm just waiting for my order to come. So let's go ahead and add everything to the inside. Okay, so what we're going to do first is let's take that double pocket we made, the one that I labeled on the right hand side. I am going to use score tape to put this down. I just really like to use score tape on my tabs. There's not going to be any tags, no tag interaction, so I don't have to worry about anything sticking. So let me show you where we put that. I hope I did that right. I think I made a mistake. Which way does that go? Oh, no, it goes this way. Okay. All right, so this one, we're going to fold it like this. We are going to take this, we're going to try to center it, we're going to put it in our spine, right? Because we have so much room in our spine. We're going to attach this, so you can see this mark here. This is the leftmost side of the spine. We're going to take it and try it. I'm just going to eyeball it. You can measure it if you want to. I don't have the energy today to measure it, but I'm just going to eyeball it. Try to center it between the top and the bottom of the page. Try not to go over that fold mark, and then just stick it down. And it has that 1/4 inch that 1/4 inch gusset, so it stands up nicely. Okay, and then just give yourself a good burnish, help it stick. Okay. Then we're going to come over to the left-hand side with the other pocket we made, and we're going to do the exact same thing. Add some score tape. Again, you can use wet glue if you want. As you pretty much figured out, I'm kind of all over the place when it comes to this. Depends on my mood. Okay. Alright, let's do the same thing. Let's try to keep it all lined up across the top. Alright, we're going to put it again in this spine. I hope you can see, and I hope I'm not blocking you. And again, it has that little gusset. Fold that in like that. And you see when you close your book, you should have something that looks like that. Okay? Next, we are going to add excuse me, our waterfall pages. And we are going to do a similar thing. Just going to add my score tape. Where'd it go? Okay. So again, this one has a gusset on it as well. So, but at this point, we're going to take the fold, right? And we're going to want to line up the fold somewhere in between. Just make sure you give yourself enough space in between the edge of your double pocket flap. Yeah, double pocket flap and this edge here without going into the crease or into the fold. So, what I like to do is kind of split the difference and keep it as straight as I can. And then I'm not too concerned about this little tab here because I always like to put a piece of pattern paper in between there. So as you can see so far, that's what we have. Okay? Now, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to come over here with our vertical pockets waterfall. Make sure I don't put it on upside down. Come on. Again, use your wet glue or your score tape. Okay, I just like to turn it like this because it's easier for me to line it up. You do you, as people say. Alright. Again, I split the difference in between the edge of the fold and my next pocket page. So there you have it. Oops. What did I do? What did I do? Okay, there we go. So you have something that looks like that. Oh, see how the short one, actually the bigger one is on top of the shorter one? I think I would switch that. I think I would go like this. So it doesn't really matter. But anyway, so that is the guts and your book. So you can, again, depending on whether you decide to use magnets or ribbon closure, will determine how you decorate the inside here. The inside is, this inside pocket's fine. You can do whatever you want here. You can put pockets here. You can put another waterfall here if you wanted to. I would just be careful that, you know, you don't have a whole lot of space. Maybe you can do a bottom loading waterfall where your waterfall starts right here and it opens downwards. Oh, that would be pretty. You know, however you want to do it. But you got to be careful with, if you do use the magnets, you have to be very careful with how you decorate. You don't want too many thicknesses of paper over top your magnets. I mean, those magnets are really strong and they do a really good job. You just want to be careful that you don't cover it up too much. Okay? So well, that's fun. And over here you could do, you have to be careful over here too because you'll have magnets here. That's why on this book, I left this space here because the 3 magnets are right here. I just made a tiny little pocket for some of the cut parts to kind of a little tuck spot. So just be careful with that. You could make one big pocket and have a big tall tag if you want to, or you can just put 2 small photo mats here. Yeah, however you want to do it, but just be careful. You don't want to cover up too much of this, again, because of your magnet situation. So, I mean, I really don't think it needs anything. That paper is absolutely gorgeous. You could put a photo right here or a couple of small photos. That would be really nice. Okay, so that is your book. Oh, actually, one thing I left out I need to show you is you need to measure for your tags. All right, so this is literally the way I do it. So basically just stick it in there. So it looks like it's about 5.5 inches. So I would make a 6-inch tag and just measure, that should be about, so actually I would do a 4x6 tag, 2 4x6s. Let's see if these 2 fit in there. Every cut is a little bit different. Let's see what I did here. All right. Oh, this one's a little bit too big. Oh, there it goes. That fits in there. This one must be a different size. So yeah, so I will go ahead and just do 2 4x6 tags. Slide one side in, the other side flaps over. Same over here, 2 4x6 tags. Or you don't have to do a tag. You do not have to put this, you don't have to make this a double pocket. You can leave this with one big pocket and you can maybe make a file folder type of a tag that goes in there for journaling. That's a lot of fun. So, and then also too in here, you have room for 2, again, little file folders, or you could put 2 tags side by side, whatever size you like. So yeah, so I think that's your book. I think that's a lot of fun. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If you have any questions, absolutely, please don't hesitate to leave me a comment, or you can contact me on Facebook. I'm just at Anne Marie Cho 40 on Facebook. You can find me on the Countrycraft Creations, Scrapbooker, sorry, of Countrycraft Creations on the design team page, or under the design team. You can find my email address. Just please don't hesitate to get in contact with me. I'm more than happy to help you answer any questions. So yeah, I hope you will make this. I know it looked a little complicated and it was a little bit wonky with the waterfalls. Most of that is due to how you score and how you fold the envelopes. But you can see it doesn't look too bad. Once you cover it with pattern paper, you can just make it look fantastic. I'm so excited. I don't know what paper I'm going to use. We'll see. I don't know. But I will maybe do another quick walkthrough, whatever I decide to, however I decide to decorate it. So again, if you make one, please tag me somewhere in social media so that I could see what you did. I'm so excited to see. So thanks again for watching. Again, everything that I used to create this can be found at Tammy's store at countrycraftcreations.com. Yeah, everything I used to make this book came from Tammy's store. The only thing that I used that was my own, what is it? Where is it? Is this trim. Everything else she provided in a design team kit, which means that excuse me, which means that everything is available in her store. So yeah, I would run if I were you, if you're interested in that Stamperia paper. It's incredibly beautiful. Just the old world one that I wanted sold out, so but I'm okay. I'll get it some other time. So yeah, so I hope you try it. Again, like I said, get in contact with me if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to help. And happy crafting, everybody. I'll talk to you all again soon. Thank you. Bye.